Okay, after several minutes of trying to get our video going tonight, I am not able to do so. So we will lead off with this. Who is the rookie that you need to be drafting in your FFPC rookie drafts, your FFPC best ball tournament drafts, your FFPC main event slow drafts, and of course your FFPC big gorilla drafts? We're also going to talk about the players that you need to avoid that a lot of people are overdrafting right now. Scott Brzycki, the 12-time FFPC Dynasty League champ, will join us on the show tonight for insight on that and so much more. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour hopefully starts now.
I can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
God bless you, Rob, for coming through tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Quite frankly, this is going to be a journey tonight. I don't know what's going to happen, but you are live watching us on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the FFPC socials, YouTube, Twitter, X, Facebook, and much more. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Eric Balkman. You can follow me on those socials at Eric Balkman, including Blue Sky at EricBalkman. So glad to have you tonight. Thanks to our producer and mutual friend, Rob. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I want to bring this up too because I misspoke last week. I said this was our 15th season of the HSFF Hour. That is inaccurate. This is our 14th season. So I jumped the gun a little bit. We are in season 14, episode 2 of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. 15, 14, whatever. It's still an incredible accomplishment. And thank you to Ferrell Elliott, Dave Gerzak, the co-founder of the FFPC, Rob Rice, and of course, each and every one of you who has made this possible over the years. Thank you. Kudos to you, and kudos again. I want to welcome you into the show tonight. Coming up on tonight's podcast, we're going to talk about the rookies that have fallen in good, advantageous spots, as well as rookies that have fallen in less than advantageous spots here. And we're going to be covering rookie drafts, thanks to our good friend, 12-time FFPC Dynasty League champion, Scott Brzycki, who has drafted a ton in the FFPC Dynasty League rookie draft so far over the course of this last week. We're going to get his thoughts on how his teams have been going, what he wish he would have done better, and what he wish he would have done more. That is coming up on tonight's show. If you want to connect with us on X, the show is at HSFF. I'm at Eric Balkman. Of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. I think I'm up in the draft there right now. I'll check on that in a little bit. KFFSC.com is where to go to play, not only in all the draft masters that are going on right now, but the KFFSC main events at KFFSC auctions you can sign up for right now at KFFSC.com. High6fantasyfootball@gmail.com is where to reach us. If you have any questions for us, send them in now to that email address, to our X account. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the program tonight. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce. And of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob. I want to bring in the definitive commissioner of fantasy football right now. You follow him on the X at jferrellelliott, at KFFSC official, and of course, KFFSC.com. KFFSC.com is where to go. It's all the leagues I've been playing in so far this year. He's the guy who runs it, the head honcho, Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, a good Friday evening to you here on May 9th, 2025. How in the heck are you doing?
Balky, you're looking clean and tight, and you did have it correct at 15 seasons because in COVID year, you were so exemplary that you got a 2-year credit for a 1 year. It's part of Biden's thing. It was a 2-year credit for your COVID year. It's 15 years. You got it right.
All right, I got it right. And Steven Georgalos and Steven, I apologize.
Easy for you to say. That's Steven
exactly.
G.
If it's Stephen G, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. He says he's on the clock right now, so I'm not. Hopefully I did not get tapped out. I don't think I got tapped out. I think I'm still good on that.
Look at what you're doing over there, Balky, and it's a masterpiece.
Well, thank you. I'll say this right now, Ferrell, and you could probably champion this as well. I feel much more dialed in to the fantasy football season when I draft early. I started drafting in January. I've continued through February, through March, through April, and now into May. I just feel much more set up to win big in the KFFSC because I've drafted early. Travis Hunter is like a 4th or 5th round pick in the KFFSC. He's definitely a 5th or 6th round pick in the FFPC. I go back to what I was doing in January. I got him in like the 13th round. Mm-hmm. Ashton Genty is a bona fide number 1 first round pick right now. Go back to KFFSC back in January. I was getting him in the late 3rd. So I'm very excited to see how those teams turn out. And for those of you who are wondering, like, why would I draft now? Because all the value has already been gotten. You're talking about very little value. I shouldn't say very little value. You're talking about a fraction of leagues in the FFPC and the KFFSC. You can still cash in on value right now. I know you've been doing it in the FFPC, and I would encourage, and everybody, and I know you would encourage people to do so too. Encourage people to draft right now because we're still in early May. There is a lot of great FFPC and KFFSC values to be had.
Yeah, and John Terry, who's on fire again as usual, and we got to get to his horse racing reference too. But that's exactly right. And I made our mailer this week. We had 3rd round for Genty, 6th round for Hampton. So, but we're in a position. People say, "Oh, it's too early to draft." It's never too early to draft, and early drafts is where you can make a huge difference. And I appreciate everybody's participation. This is the earliest we've ever been off in the KFFSC with the main event, but we're responding to the players that want to play and want to draft. It looks like everybody's having a good time, and it looks like you, Balky, are putting together a masterpiece.
Yeah, I'm trying. Steven says I'm putting my Henderson stock where my mouth is. I have.
That's good.
I've taken Travion Henderson as my number 3 running back in more than one draft, definitely in the KFFSC. And if you want to do that, which I would encourage you to do so, you can do so at kffsc.com with the KFFSC main events off and running, the KFFSC Draft Masters there. And of course, don't forget about the FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments, a $300,000 grand prize and a $100,000 grand prize, respectively. That'll cost you $125 or $35 to enter. In the FFPC Best Ball tournament, for the first time ever, a $100,000 grand prize runner-up. I'm going to say that again. You don't even win the thing. You take second, you're going to get a 6-figure grand prize. MyFFPC.com, 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks going on right now for those Superflex Best Ball tournaments and the regular Best Ball tournaments for the FFPC Best Ball tournament. If you want to play Dynasty, 365 days a year for fantasy football, that's your choice. MyFFPC.com is your home for that. Check that out at myffpc.com. $100 to $5,000 as far as Dynasty Leagues go. 1,800 plus leagues over the last 15 years. None have ever folded. Check that out, myffpc.com, which is where you can join the Big Gorilla. The Big Gorilla tournament, just a $350 entry, and you can win $1 million grand prize. Live and slow drafts going off, including the Early Rampage tournament and the 7 Bananas promo. Right now, if you register, you're going to be entered into 2 separate tournaments for a $350 entry fee, and you'll be eligible for a $10,000 and a $1 million grand prize. Speaking of $1 million grand prizes, the FFPC main event is off and running with slow drafts. Live drafts going to be starting at the end of the month. $1 million grand prize, $6 million plus prize pool. The early bird deadline is on. If you want to draft in the Pros versus Joes tournament, which we will be broadcasting live on this here program at the end of July, register now. May 31st is the deadline. You'll be entered into the drawing there. Receive $200 off your first team. MyFFPC.com. Slow drafts running off and running out. Our good buddy Ferrell, Cullen Hoffman, messaged me on X today. He said, "Are you covering any FFPC main events this year? I kind of want to play my free entries off on getting my show or getting my draft live on the air." Yes, we will be covering main events, but here's the thing: draft early now, because this is when you're getting the value. MyFFPC.com is where to go for the main event, the Big Gorilla, the FFPC Superflex and Best Ball tournaments, as well as Dynasty Leagues. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Tom is already saying, Balky, stay away from my guys. I'm trying to. On the KFFSC. No promises on that, Tom. I'm trying to. We'll see what happens. And if I do. If I don't, I don't. I can't help that. John Terry, our good friend Ferrell, leading things off tonight on YouTube. How do you see the Cleveland backfield
that's a good question.
in 2025? I totally agree with Ferrell on this. This is a good question.
Yeah. Shedeur Sanders is going to rush for 1,200 yards. That's what you get for asking a question like that right now, John Terry.
I'm going to tell you.
The Cleveland, the guys that are putting together the depth chart don't even have that figured out yet. What are you talking about, John?
All right, here's the thing.
Make something up, Balky.
I'm going to put this on wax right now. If Shedeur Sanders rushes for 1,200 yards over the course of his career, including if he has Shedeur Sanders Jr. get to the NFL and combining his rushing yards with Pops, I will Ferrell 2 steak dinners in Las Vegas.
It will be legendary.
Ferrell owes me nothing. That's how sure I am that Shedeur Sanders is not rushing for 1,200 yards this year. We'll see what happens, though. That Cleveland situation is a fun one to look at. We'll talk ourselves who were blue in the face about the quarterbacks. Ferrell, what do you make? And this is interesting because I did in one of my rookie drafts, in one of my rookie dynasty drafts this past week, I did take Dylan Sampson at the end of the second round after the Browns had already taken Quinshon Judkins. Everybody's celebrating Judkins, and then Sampson comes into the fold as well. Both those guys are Cleveland Browns right now. As John Terry says, how do we see the backfield being divided up for 2025 between Judkins, between Sampson, between Jerome Ford, everybody they got in Cleveland right now?
Yeah, I don't know. And neither do they. And they're going to try to figure it out. And they may still choose the wrong guy. And
who is the wrong guy, Ferrell? Who is the wrong guy?
We don't know. We don't know. And probably John's gone fishing because he's got a strong opinion. And there's people that follow Cleveland Browns football religiously, and they come up with this idea. This is going, if you want to be in the fantasy business with the Cleveland Browns, my first question is why? My second question is, you tell me what you're thinking about it, because you're going to have to watch them in the preseason and see just who is gelling with this team. This team is truly the old cliche. This is a work in progress. And we got to see.
We will see. And I think like at the point we're at right now, like I'm fine with where Quinshon Judkins is going. You look at the mojo on this right now. And I'm going to bring it up right now just so I'm not talking out of my rear end. But fantasymojo.com is the place where you want to go if you are playing in the FFPC, whether it be Dynasty, whether it be Redraft. Fantasy Mojo on Twitter at Fantasy Mojo, and of course fantasymojo.com. That's where you want to go. When it comes to ADP, when it comes to stacking, everything that you want to know is located at fantasymojo.com. Darren Armani is the godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joe's competition. If I look at the FFPC Best Ball Tournament over the last 7 days, Quinshon Judkins is currently going off. If I can spell his name right, I can tell you right now. My goodness. Quinshon Judkins is going off as running back 21 at the 509 Ferrell. That is behind Travion Henderson, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara. It is ahead of James Conner, RJ Harvey, and David Montgomery. Now, I know we got our guest coming up here in Scott Brzycki, and I want to get to him in a second. But I will just say this, since somebody already posted on the YouTube chat about Balky putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
Travion Henderson. I'm trying to find it right now.
It was Stephen G.
Okay, Stephen G. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so Stephen G saying Balky is putting his money where his mouth is with Travion Henderson. And I have. Like, I took him in a KFFSC. I can't remember if it was main event or Draft Masters with KFFSC. But I do believe that Ramondre Stevenson is a guy you don't want to be in business with in 2025. I do believe the guy that you want to be drafting in New England this year is Travion Henderson. So if I'm comparing him to Judkins and I look at the FFPC Best Ball Tournament ADP, Henderson is 412, running back 18. Quinshon Judkins, running back 21 at the 509. I think those are fine values for both of them, considering that running backs in the FFPC typically go a little bit higher than they do in the KFFSC. I just have no hope for Ramondre Stevenson in New England this year. It is Henderson's backfield. I love Henderson this year, Ferrell, and I'm dialing him up in a lot of my leagues this year. I wouldn't say I'm ignoring Judkins, but if I'm comparing the two, even when you could compare the draft capital here of Henderson going about 3/4 of a round ahead of Judkins, I still like Henderson over Judkins. How do you look at these Ohio State running backs?
I follow in your review of this, and Balky, how did you come to this conclusion? Because you talked to some of the finest minds in the business, and then we gather on Friday, and you got the most knowledgeable players in the business. So how did you come to this? Did you take a little bit of information from different types of sources, or did you see it? Did you just see it and know it with this player?
It's a great question, Ferrell. And I would say if you go back to 2023, I started to see it with Henderson. Henderson probably would have been the top running back off the board in 2024. He decided to stay an extra year. Now, whether that was because of extra seasoning or he was getting a sweet deal with NIL, I don't know. But I know Ohio State brought Judkins in as a complementary piece to that backfield, not necessarily the star. Henderson, to me, he has a much more refined pass catching game than Judkins does. And I'll say this as well. And this is kind of what tipped the scales for me. When you have a guy like Chris Ballard, Ferrell, who I know you know very well, the GM for the Indianapolis Colts, out of nowhere talking about how good of a pass blocker Trevion Henderson is. He didn't even draft the guy. This was a player that's on New England, another player that is on a rival team in his own conference. And Chris Ballard is answering a question about running backs, and he's talking about how good of a pass blocker Trevion Henderson. This is a sign, okay? This is a flag that is waving in the distance to all the dynasty players out there. This is why you want Henderson on your team. Ramondre Stevenson was already losing touches last year to Antonio Gibson. Then they go ahead and invest high draft capital into Trevion Henderson. Henderson is a guy who can pass catch, he can pass block, and he's good between the tackles and outside the tackles. Quinshon Judkins could very well be a great player in the NFL. But when it comes to dollars to donuts, I am placing my wager on Henderson this year over Judkins and in dynasty leagues. That's how I feel about it. Could be wrong, but based on everything I've heard, everything I've read, I think Henderson's the play.
I love how you got there, and I can tell you're going to stay there. And this is your guy. It's a wonderful to have a player like that. And by the time we get to the FFPC in Paris, Las Vegas this year, I hope all our guys tonight in the chat room and listening have 5 guys like that.
Right.
There sure are some tight ends that I like, Bob.
There are a lot of tight ends. We'll get into some of the tight ends here now as we bring in our guest for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. No stranger to FFPC Dynasty League championships. He's done, I don't know how many over the course of the last several years, but he's won a dozen of them. A player that knows what he's doing when it comes to rookie drafts, when it comes to dynasty management, when it comes to fantasy football drafting 101. This guy has already aced it. You can follow him on Facebook.com/Brzycki. He is the one, the only Scott Brzycki, joining us on the show tonight. The pride of Arizona. Scott, welcome in tonight. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight. How are you doing?
Oh, no, he's muted.
Oh, Scott, you may be muted. You may be muted. Hold on.
Hit that button, Scott.
Okay, go ahead. Try to unmute yourself, Scott. Hold on. Oh, God, he's got iPods in. This is like
this is dangerous.
This is dangerous.
He can probably hear us.
He can hear. I can tell he can hear us.
He's got even the little microphone.
Mute. Scott, let me pop you out right now. Scott, if you can pop out the iPods and go with an external mic here.
Yeah, external mic's always good.
We'll see if that works out. Yeah. Scott is a guy who is and I'll let Scott adjust here. Scott is a guy who is in, I don't know, a dozen plus dynasty leagues right now. He's got a bunch more that haven't started yet. So as far as rookies go, as far as Pat Bryant, as far as Trey Harris, Terrence Ferguson, we're going to ask him all about these things tonight on the show. Not your run-of-the-mill dynasty rookies, but I think important ones to know as we navigate through the FFPC Dynasty Rookie Drafts, which started last weekend, will continue through this weekend and much more. Let's go back to Scott right now. Scott, let's see if we have you on board right now. Scott Brzycki, I think I hear you now.
There he
Scott,
is.
You got us?
You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we're good now.
Congratulations. All right. We're rocking and rolling.
Scott, as hard as it is. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, Scott. As hard as it is to win FFPC Dynasty Leagues, you have done something even greater tonight. You have defeated technology, Bill Gates, Wozniak, everybody, Steve Jobs. You have defeated them. You are live on the air tonight. Thank you so much for hopping aboard. Let me ask you this: when you're not winning all these Dynasty Leagues, what are you doing for a living?
So I've been in the consumer finance, auto finance business since right out of college. So in all different kind of facets, lending, collecting, selling, and operations, big operations, small operations. So really just auto finance and banking.
Auto finance and banking. Ferrell, this is a guy that knows how to leave himself a lot of time to manage his dynasty draft.
I love that. And all that success, Scott, you still can't buy yourself a Val. I can find lots of places to fit one in here, but it's just
I get one full-time and one part-time Val. I guess
it's fantastic. You are a full-time, very successful fantasy player. The dynasty player like yourself. Now you play all across the spectrum of all of FFPC events. You play the main event, you play the best ball, you play the dynasty. I think the attention and the dedication that dynasty players bring to the game, it's just fantastic. I think it's sort of the glue that holds together the spring that we have as we get ready to get to May, February and March, the guests, and you're coming on here as we move into May. It's a strong situation. I got so many damn questions to ask you. I wanted to talk about tight ends, but I want to go. We keep bringing up Palmer with the Chargers, and he just moved on. Talk to us about who might be stepping in his place, who's going to get those 70-ish receptions, and can it be a player that is more explosive, radiates a little bit more confidence? What do you say? Trey Harris, can you talk about him a little bit?
I can. Last year I was big on McConkey. I really liked his sharpness, his routes, the quickness, intelligence, the football intelligence. I was all over him in drafts because I was, as you mentioned, I have some success. I was drafting late in the first in a lot of leagues. So I've got several McConkey shares. But when I watched him play, especially when it got to the playoffs, that guy was getting destroyed when he went over the middle. That was just brutal. And when I look at Trey Harris, he's bigger, he's sturdier. He looks a little bit more like Rashee Rice to me when he plays. Physical. I think he's going to be much better suited for that over the middle game where you got to fight a little bit more, maybe have to challenge a safety now and again. I just really liked his tape. And when he went to the Chargers, I was like, yep, giddy up. Yep. He's got Herbert. He's got McConkey how is the team going to cover him? I think it's just a really good fit. I was really excited. I really like Jaden Higgins more. I just didn't have the draft capital to get there, but when it came down to the decision, oftentimes I was going Harris. So,
is there a player in the league already that Harris reminds you of?
Yeah, Rashee Rice, I think is.
Ooh,
he built similarly. I think he plays physical similarly. Is not afraid to stick his nose in it. I like that style.
Good. I like that too.
Yeah, and that obviously that's going to be whetting the appetites of a lot of FFPC players out there comparing Trey. And I'll be honest with you. So there's one private dynasty league I'm in, Scott, and I forgot I had traded for a second round pick from one of my fellow draft cohorts, and we came up on the clock on Sunday at the 2:04, and I'm like, God, I don't know what to do here because I didn't plan on taking a player. But I ended up going with Trey Harris because of, and I think there's something to be said. I know the Chargers want to run the ball with Hampton and with Najee Harris. And I know Ladd McConkey is the number one there. But at the same time, I think there is a realm where Trey Harris is a guy you not only want to roster, but you want to start on certain weeks going forward throughout his career for the next 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years. And I think that warrants an early second round pick. So I'm definitely with you on that. Let's talk about a player. And quite frankly, I have not had the chutzpah, the testosterone to draft this guy yet because somebody else always seem to have the quote unquote balls to draft this guy ahead of me in my rookie drafts, and it's Pat Bryant. I was sitting at the NFL draft in Green Bay last weekend, talking with a guy because I do a terrestrial radio show, local radio show in Northeast Wisconsin, talking about the Packers. And I was talking about a guy who covers the Packers. And he told me Friday morning before round 2 had started, he said, hey, listen, I don't know if the Packers are going to draft this guy, but I really like Pat Bryant for Green Bay, and I think he's going to go off the board today. And I said, whoa, Pat Bryant, what are you talking about? This guy is destined for day 3. There's no way he goes off the board today. And he said, no, look, Pat Bryant is going to somebody today. I don't know if it's Green Bay. I don't know if it's Detroit. I don't know if it's Denver. I don't know who it is, but he's going off the board on Friday. And he was right. Pat Bryant goes off the board in the 3rd round. This was higher than most pundits said he would go. I don't know how you feel about Pat Bryant. I don't know how you feel about drafting him in your rookie drafts. But after you saw the Broncos soak a 3rd round pick into this guy, how far up did you bump him on your draft boards in your rookie leagues in the FFPC, Scott?
He was in a pretty low tier for me. As a matter of fact, after the Broncos drafted him, I went back and looked at his tape again because, I had him in, like 18, 19 in my wide receiver ranks. I did relook at him, obviously knowing that Peyton, got his guy, and they have definite issues with depth and quality and talent on their receiving core. So, yeah, I had to move him up. I don't think there's any way around that. And as a matter of fact, I've just traded into a draft into the 5th round where he's available at the 502. I gave up a 4th round pick in 26 for the 502 and 602 because there's actually a lot of players in there that I think I can pick up. There's Trevor Etienne and a couple other guys that I like that are in that range. And so I traded back into the round.
I love the way you
specifically. I just think. What was that?
Oh, I love the way you're coming at this. And while I listen to this, I just sit here and realizing that you and Balky are playing chess and I'm playing checkers.
No, that's not accurate.
That's what's going on. That's what's going on right here. But you wanted to finish a thought about this Pat Bryant, who you are somewhat warming to, and Balky hanging out with the exclusives there in Green Bay has some inside knowledge about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's even kind of cherry. Plus, and here I'm going to add an extra little piece of incentive. I like to watch football on Sundays. My wife is a Broncos fan. I got some Bo Nix shares. It's a good it's a good thing. Let's have some fun on Sunday.
Ferrell, Scott, I know you didn't hear this, and Ferrell, maybe you did hear this already. I'll drop some non-essential knowledge for anybody, for Packers insider non-essential knowledge. I don't know if this helps anybody out for Best Baller Dynasty, but I'll say this right now. From a guy who I trust as one of my sources with the Packers, I know he's ingratiated in it. He told me at the draft, this is after the Matthew Golden selection, he told me on Friday morning that Christian Watson, I wouldn't say desperately, strongly, let's say, strongly wants to re-sign with Green Bay, even though his contract is up. And Romeo Doubs, he also said Romeo Doubs is all but gone, which I don't think you need an insider to hear that. Like, it's Doubs is going to be somewhere else. Could be Pittsburgh, by the way. That's another angle that we can pursue tonight. But Watson wants to continue his career in the NFL with Green Bay over any other team. Take that for what it's worth after they signed the 4.29 guy in Matthew Golden. But I'm just telling you what I've heard. And I've been drafting as such. Now, we've talked about Pat Bryant here. Let's talk about this massive trade that happened, Scott, between the Cowboys and Steelers this week. The Cowboys have acquired George Pickens for draft picks. The Steelers obviously are looking for Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson to take a step forward in their offense this year, or perhaps maybe traded for a guy like Romeo Doubs in Green Bay. Non-zero chance of that. But I'll say this. In one of my Dynasty rookie drafts, I had the 7-12 pick, the final pick of the rookie draft. I took Calvin Austin. I feel really strongly about that. Scott, I don't know how you feel about the number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh. Maybe there's no fantasy goodness here at all with that. But when you talk about who could be the Robin to DK Metcalf's Batman in Pittsburgh, is it Roman Wilson? Is it Calvin Austin? Is it non-existent? Is this a situation you want to deal with at all? How do you feel about that situation right now?
Well, last year in the draft, I really liked Roman Wilson. I really did. I drafted him everywhere, and held on to him as a roster clogger for way too long. And cut him. Let's be honest. You have to let it go at some point. You have to let the dream, die. But now there's new life. So I do like Calvin Austin. I do. He's definitely got a shot. But I'm with you. I don't know. And if I'm going to take a stab in a 6th or 7th round, and see what happens in camp, let's go. I think that's a reasonable place to play that. I'm not drafting him early for sure, but I definitely jumped on the news and went, I've always liked Roman Wilson. Now he's got a real chance.
Yes.
Let's go.
Farrell, where do you fall in on this? Roman Wilson versus Calvin Austin?
I love the size of Roman Wilson. We all became fans. I like the resume. I like the more established names here with Pittsburgh. I think there are tons of questions you could roll back here. Tons of questions, and let's just focus on the Pickens side of it.
Yeah,
I think that many times you see a player that really needs a change of scenery, and that's where we are with Pickens. And I think that's what drafters should really do, is get re-engaged with Pickens and become more excited about him, because it's what can you get me a mojo on Pickens?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Farrell, you want in the Big Gorilla or Best Ball? What do you want?
I'll take it out wherever we can get him.
Okay, so let's do Big Gorilla right now. Over the last 7 days, which granted is, some of those days happen with Pickens being a Steeler, but right now he has risen to wide receiver 41 at the 804. For context's sake, that is behind Calvin Ridley, behind Khalil Shakir. It is ahead of Stephon Diggs. It is ahead of Jacoby Myers. That's where he is lining in on Darren Armani's Fantasy Mojo, fantasymojo.com.
That's some very good players that he's in the neighborhood of. But I think if you go back to, and Scott will remember when Pickens was coming out of school, what we thought about this player. And we thought that the possibilities were limitless. And I think when he went to Pittsburgh, we all kind of shrugged our shoulders and could have found better landing spots. Now he has one, despite the problems at the quarterback position.
That's a good question that Ferrell brings up, Scott. How did you treat George Pickens in rookie drafts?
Back in the day, I picked him up. I drafted him pretty often. I liked the talent. I was a little worried about the head. He did seem like a bit of a hothead. But sometimes that brings, that extra competitiveness is good. I did worry about it a little bit, so I didn't pick him up a lot. And then when the situation kind of evolved and he got a lot of fire, I probably got him in the 2nd round a lot of places. When the heat started and he started to get a lot of hype, I got rid of him about as quick as I could. It just wasn't my kind of player. I thought I got a nice return on him, and played for players that I liked a little better at the time.
Many times you see players and you hope they grow up off the field. This player needed to grow up from his antics on the field.
I go back at Ferrell. That's a good point, because I go back to all these Steelers receivers that have left Pittsburgh, or via trade or via free agency or whatever.
Find me one that's successful, Balky.
Well, there have been some that have been successful. Not as successful as they were in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Deontay Johnson. Who are the other guys I'm thinking of here?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Juju Smith-Schuster. Emmanuel Sanders.
There's AB is probably the most famous of them all. Did he play one game for Tampa after?
That's the thing.
And then Lev Bell. Tomlin has done a lot of psychology work in his head coaching role. So I think that's impressive in and of itself to watch players unravel post Tomlin.
Another thing I want to put on wax tonight. I could be wrong about this, and Lord knows if you've been watching the show. By the way, we haven't been on the air for 15 years. Farrell has said this at the top of the show. You said 15. I'm still backing 14.
No, it's 15.
Okay, it's 15. I've been wrong over the last 15 years about a lot of things, but I'll say this. about Steelers receivers. By and large, if you bet against a Steeler receiver having better success outside of Pittsburgh after he gets traded or signs elsewhere, you have been wrong more often than not. And I am going to bet on that continuing with George Pickens, considering he is not the number one receiver in Dallas. And he may not even be the number 2 passing option in Dallas. So for me, and I don't have any dynasty shares of Pickens, but and for my local, there you go. For my local radio show, in that I do in Northeast Wisconsin, I have a guest co-host on every Tuesday. He's from the Pittsburgh area. He is a big Steelers fan, and he ran into a guy at the gym this past week in Northeast Wisconsin who was wearing a Steelers shirt, and he said to him, and there may not be any fantasy football relevance here, but he said to him, he's like, "Hey man, Pickens, he's now a Cowboy. What do you think about that?" And the guy at the gym took out his iPods, wearing a Steelers shirt, turned to my buddy, who I have on Tuesdays on my show. He turned to my buddy and he said, "Good fucking riddance."
Mm-hmm. Oh, you said the F word, boss.
Because we're good.
Thing.
No, we're good on that because we're 36 minutes in. So YouTube is not going to demonetize us for that. So we're good on that. But he said, "Good blanking riddance."
Yeah.
To that.
Isn't it great news for DK that Pittsburgh put their money where their mouth is, and now it's wheels up for DK.
Right. So Scott, you bring that up. This is a good question. And I'll bring this up right now. I think I had, so Corey Walters is talking about this in the YouTube chat. My cousin played with Roman Wilson at Michigan, and he said he was a dog. And I had the opportunity, and I think I brought this up at the top of the show. I had the opportunity to take either Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin with the final pick of my rookie draft at the end of the 7th round. I took Calvin Austin here. Scott, do you have any personal feelings on what we should be doing with the secondary Pittsburgh wide receiver? Because I think Freiermuth is the secondary pass catcher, right? But as far as the secondary wide receiver, should it be Austin, who showed up more than Wilson last year, or should it be Wilson, who is the higher pedigreed guy of the two?
Well, like I said, my chips are in on Wilson. What few chips I'm willing to put on that bet. So that's where I'm headed. Like I said, I like the talent. I liked what I saw. The situation didn't work out for him last year. I don't know exactly what it was. A little bit of injury, a little bit of some other stuff, but that's where I'm headed.
Okay, that's where you're headed for there. I want to shift it to tight ends here. Terrence Ferguson. Ferrell, you probably saw this conversation that the Rams, before they traded out of the 1st round with the Falcons, were ready to take Terrence Ferguson as their pick in the late 1st round, which would have meant 3 tight ends going off the board in the NFL draft this year in 2025. They not only traded the pick to the Falcons, they got an extra 1st round pick for the quarterbacks next year, and they also got their man at the end of the 2nd round in Terrence Ferguson. Scott, this begs the question here. How high are you in tight end premium leagues like the FFPC on Terrence Ferguson in your dynasty rookie drafts?
He's an easy, mid-2nd round look for me. I have him right behind Mason Taylor. Just phenomenal athlete in a great situation. I mean, can you imagine an athletic Tyler Higbee? I mean, that screams that opportunity there. So I'm excited about.
When uninjured, Tyler Higbee was athletic. I can remember back in that day.
Yeah, he could move, and he was quite. I think that offense is looking for that second target. I think they've overused, Puka and those kind of hard to get yards situations, and I think I just think it's a phenomenal opportunity. And McVay, you want a guy scheming your guy. That's a guy you want to have on your side. So. I have him right behind, the top 2. I have Mason Taylor and him right neck and neck, right behind the top 2.
Well, we haven't started talking about the 2 tight ends that are absolutely marvelous and bring great interest. But I'm not going to. I'm going to go back in time because I think the tight end position should. They can't all be Brock Bowers and they can't all be day one deliverers for fantasy football. But I think the tight end position needs some type of development. That's where I go to Ben Sinnott. Is it Sinnott or Sinnott?
Sinnott.
That's right. Sinnott, physical specimen that got mixed up in everything that was going on at Washington last year, including the fact that the veteran will not release the position. So your thoughts when you look at a player last year that has some draft capital to him and did not meet fantasy expectations, he becomes available this year, and he's available very, very late in these drafts. Well, your thoughts on giving a talented player another year at the position?
I asked myself, what has changed in his circumstance, other than he's a year closer to starting this year. Mm-hmm. And last year he was all the buzz, all the fire. And, he was going, early second, mid second in every draft. And now I'm getting him thrown in on trades. I traded in one league. Some guy wanted the 305. He gave me Sinnott and the 405 for the 305. I mean, he's an afterthought. And to me, that's too much talent to pass on. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the tight end. I think one of the reasons why I'm successful is I go counter-current on a lot of positions. I tend to spitball running backs together. Oh, somebody's on the clock.
It's probably me. I'm trying to find out right now. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm on the clock right now that I'm going to get Pat Bryant here in a second. But 502. 502. The situation is that, I've always built my teams with strong tight ends. I was big Kelsey stan. I traded away all my draft picks for Kelsey a long time ago. And, then I had a team that I bought I got an orphan. They had McBride. I drafted Bowers. I picked up Jonnu. Mm-hmm. I was running a 3 tight end set, every game, and went within about a half of a point of the championship with that setup. So, and quarterback is another thing, but to me, tight ends is a differentiator for you. If you can crack the tight end code, that is a differentiator.
And
Balky, sorry. You go first, Balky.
Ferguson is a differentiator because I think that the thing to keep in mind is that this dude was this close, at least reportedly, to being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. And I feel like not a lot of people have adopted that. And for you, Scott, you are looking at Ferguson as not only a differentiator as far as his draft capital goes, but when you put him on your dynasty team, he is still a tight end differentiator, not only this year, but down the road.
Yep. 100%.
I like that differentiator. I like that a lot. Can we talk about Indianapolis and Chicago tight ends?
Oh, for God's sake, yes.
I want you to get out of your dynasty mode, and I want you to look ahead to September. We're out in Las Vegas. How many players are you going to knock out of the way to get your hands on Warren and the kid at Chicago? What's his name, Balky?
Loveland.
Colston Loveland.
Yep.
How, based on what we saw last year with Bowers, which one of those guys gets closest to being Bowers, and what are you going to do with those two players? That's what I want to know.
Well, talent-wise, I'm more like, when you just look at him, Warren plays a lot more like Bowers, but I think Loveland is in a much better situation than Warren is. I think the target competition in Indianapolis and the quarterback play question marks, that might sort itself out, but I don't think the fight for targets, and Chicago's not much better, to be honest. Mm-hmm. That's why I like the Mason Taylor, Ferguson route, because the competition for targets is much thinner in those two environments. For the Jets and for the Rams. So, when I was looking at them, I bunched them together. I thought Warren and Loveland went down based on, where they went. And I moved up Taylor and Ferguson to make that much tighter. Not quite a tier. There's a tier between, but much, much tighter just from an opportunity perspective. The talent was overwhelming for all four to me. But I don't know if there's a Bowers out there where the situation just lines up with the talent like it did there. That was just it's rare.
Yeah, Scott, I'm with you. There's no Bowers out there.
Well, Balky, let's be careful there.
No, I will be careful, and I feel like I'm saying this very cautiously. That I shouldn't say cautiously. I feel like I'm saying this very well researchedly, and that's a word I'm making.
No, you shouldn't say that either.
Well, okay, I won't say it again. But I feel like yes, I'm pretty confident in saying there is no rookie Brock Bowers this year. Ferrell, if there is one, who do you think it is? Because this might lead into my next question.
Well, I think it's Warren. I think he is, as Scott says, he has the skills that are most like Bowers. He also has the path to change the direction of the quarterback. You know, Scott, if you've watched the show, we every time we talk about somebody with the Colts, somebody will pop up the captain of it. Who's going to be throwing him the ball, taking a shot at Richardson. You go to quarterback rating, Richardson as well as Williams were 27 and 28, in the league. They both had difficult years last year. My point is this: we have to do something that saves this quarterback. Bowers got that situation where he caught all those balls from 5 different quarterbacks. I think there's a possibility that this player fulfills the goal that the Colts have to make their quarterback successful. So that's why.
So this is a good posit that Ferrell is putting up here right now, and I'm going to selfishly take it for my own personal advice, because not only am I on the clock in a KFFSC best ball league, but I did make this choice in a redraft best ball league. Where do you stand on 2025 value when it comes to Tyler Warren versus Colson Loveland? Scott, let's throw out Dynasty, because I know we've been talking a lot of Dynasty, but when you're looking at simply the 2025 year, Loveland versus Warren, where do you stand on that? They're separated by less than a round in the FFPC best ball tournament, according to the Fantasy Mojo at ADP.
I couldn't put him in my top 12. I just don't. I don't see the target path.
Both of them. You're not putting in your top 12.
I think I would put. I think Loveland has a clearer shot for targets, but I don't think you have a very. I mean, there's just too much competition. They're both dealing with quarterback. Even though Caleb is up and coming.
Yeah.
I would pick other tight ends that have I'm a floor player. I mean, that's why I probably don't do that great at best ball. I'm a floor player. I like to look at that kind of worst case scenario, glass half empty and cracked on the bottom look, and try to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'd probably go in another direction. But if I had gun to my head, I'm going Loveland. I think he's
interesting.
I think he's got clear path.
The thing that worries me about Loveland, and I'll let you weigh in on this, Scott. Farrell, I know how you feel about it, but you can feel free to pop in after Scott. I look at the Chicago Bears, Burden, Moore, Odunze, Swift, and everybody they got in the backfield, Roshan Johnson, and Kyle Monangai is probably a non-factor, but I'll just bring him up as well. But then I look at the Colts. It's like, yeah, I know they got Michael Pittman. I know they got Josh Downs. I feel like soaking that high of a pick into Tyler Warren, and I know the Bears soaked a higher pick into Loveland. I just feel like the talent deficit in Indianapolis is more real than it is in Chicago, which leads me to believe that Warren is the proper pick in redraft. You clearly see it a different way, saying that Loveland.
Yeah, but let's look at how about coaching? Let's look at Ben Johnson scheming with Laporta and picking his guy and being extremely excited. We mentioned before, coaches finding their guy. This is Ben Johnson, who just had Sam Laporta, who we probably compare skill set to Loveland. I just don't see a way around it. I mean, I just don't see a way around it. Where Indianapolis has a lot of questions to solve before Warren gets there.
Okay, and that makes sense to me. So now that we know how you feel about that from a dynasty perspective, or from a redraft perspective, what about dynasty? Because and listen, if you feel like the fact that he's handpicked or whatever, Loveland is by Ben Johnson, then I think we know how you feel about him from a dynasty perspective. But I look at all that talent in Chicago, man. It's Moore, it's Burden, it's Odunze. There's a lot of guys there that can.
How do tight ends score points, Balky? How do tight ends score points? Touchdowns. Do you think Indianapolis is going to be scoring a lot of touchdowns?
Okay.
I don't think so.
Right. Okay.
I think Chicago's set up to score a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, Chicago's got to get their down and distance situation worked on, and I hope Ben is bringing a lot of really good.
We have to sort out in Chicago. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Bears fan. I get it. We got a lot of question marks.
That kid is sacked 68 times last year, so that ball is going to come out of his hands very, very quick.
It should.
Very quick.
And by the way, Ferrell, I'll let you ask about Chase Brown here in a second. I'm asking about Chase Brown. I'm sorry, but here's the thing, and this with what Scott has told us tonight, this goes back to the Dow of Baker Boy, right? Joe Del Zanero, one of the greatest. He's the Yogi Berra, in my opinion, the Yogi Berra of high stakes fantasy football, and he said, Why would you draft players on teams that don't score touchdowns? The Colts, they don't score touchdowns. The Bears, they should be scoring touchdowns this year, which is why you should take Loveland over Warren. Now, a team here, Scott, that will be scoring, in my opinion at least, a lot of touchdowns in 2025, like they did in 2024, is the Cincinnati Bengals. I was pleased as punch in all my dynasty leagues that I own Chase Brown, that they did not invest a first-round pick. They did not invest a day 2 pick into the running back position. I love Chase Brown this year. All the Zach Moss owners out there, come at me with your hate. I don't think there's a lot. I don't think there's a lot of Zach Moss apologists out there. However, there might be some Taj Brooks apologists who the Bengals drafted on day 3, a guy that a lot of people were looking forward to see where he would land in the NFL draft, and he lands in Cincinnati. So just blanket statement here, or blanket question I should ask. Scott, how does Taj Brooks affect Chase Brown? Let's look at this simply from the 2025 season from a redraft standpoint, not necessarily a dynasty standpoint. Although if you want to weigh in on that, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think, that Cincinnati has put their money where their mouth is. They tried to bring in Moss to try to split it up. That didn't really work out. Chase stole the show. They went for Pirine, in the free agent market. There was probably better options if they really wanted touch competition and waited to day 3 to draft a running back that's kind of meh. So to me, it was wheels up. I had sent out a ton of trades before the draft for Chase Brown, hoping to pick him up for like some seconds. Nobody bit, but one guy did, counter to me for a late round first. And as soon as the day 2 passed, I hit accept. There was no way that a day 3 running back was going to upset that apple cart as far as I was concerned. So I think Chase Brown's going to be phenomenal. I don't think, Todd, I think if they do anything, it's probably going to be continued Zach Moss here and there, some Pirine third down work or late game work, but it's going to be Chase Brown to the moon. I wish I had more.
Stay with that running back position, but let's take it out to the West Coast. Let's talk about is this the year that things begin to change in San Francisco? Jordan James.
Oh yeah, here we go.
What can you do? What do you think about McCaffrey and Jordan James? What does this look like? What is this backfield going to
do? I was not off of McCaffrey, just too expensive for me. I'm a baller on a budget. I'm looking for value. McCaffrey was, as many firsts as I could muster to try to get my team. Well, last year, he kind of dropped in price. I picked him up in a couple of spots, and obviously, didn't work out great for me. But Jordan James was a player I really liked the tape on. I really liked it. He was up there for me. He is right now in FFPC my most owned player.
Wow.
I've been able to pick him up in the 4th. I've been able to pick him up in the 5th. I've been able to, get him in the 3rd. As many times as I see him there, and he's and there's not a better player for me that I have higher ranked on my board. He's on my roster. So I'm hoping for a change of scenery. I'm still worried about what's his face? What's that player that was the backup last year?
Yeah, Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah, Guerendo. I mean, I liked him. I liked him a little bit. He seemed one-dimensional. I think it's going to not be too long before Jordan James, if there's an injury, he's going to get a shot, and it could be a good shot.
You know, it's weird to think about this, but when you consider that, here's the thing: Jordan James was where was he in the NFL draft, Scott? Was he a fifth? He was a day 3 pick, right?
No, he was day 2, wasn't he?
Was he day? I'm looking it up right now because I'm curious myself. Because
he was day 3, fifth round, early fifth round,
or early fifth round pick. You don't necessarily think about players like that as targets in your dynasty rookie draft. And quite frankly, we don't have the time to go through all the failed day 2 and day 3 running backs that Kyle Shanahan has drafted in San Francisco, Tyrion Davis-Price, and so on and so forth. We just don't have the time.
Yeah, lots.
But Jordan James, when you consider what you're giving up in your rookie draft, like, to me, it represents a good risk. And yes, it probably will fail. But I feel like how late he's going right now, I'm on board. I don't know if he's going to be the heir apparent there. But I do know if McCaffrey goes down this year, he's probably going to factor heavily into it, right? He's probably going to, like with Garendo, whatever. I love the fact of you can acquire this guy for nearly nothing, no draft capital, stick him on your bench in the FFPC Dynasty Leagues and see what happens. He is a player well worth taking the risk on. We heard this, Scott, before the NFL draft. We heard that whoever Jordan James gets with, like, you need to be paying attention with. I heard, I think Football Guys was driving this narrative, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. But they said, what happens if Bashal Tutin lands with the 49ers? Now, he didn't. He goes to the Jaguars, and we could talk about 20, 25 minutes on that. But he goes to the Jaguars. But what if Jordan James was the replacement for Bashal Tutin? And all of a sudden you're looking at, like, I think this is a player that is not going to cost me a lot in my draft capital in my rookie dynasty drafts. I should be acquiring him just to see what happens. And Scott, that's exactly what you have been doing so far.
Yep, 100%. Like I said, I liked him. And, where did Bucky go last year?
5th round.
Oh, God, it was super late. Yeah.
Yeah.
5th round.
Bucky was another player last year. He was a flag plant for me. And, anytime I could get him, I got him. And that paid off as well. Like I said, you can't be looking past, too much past the current window, next year or two, when you're looking at your running backs, especially. And like I said, if you got a shot at that kind of offense and that kind of opportunity, you got to take it.
I can't remember who said this. And Ferrell, I'm going to let you ask Scott the final question here in a little bit. But I can't remember who said this. It might have been JJ Zachariason from Late Round QB. Do you feel like you are better off in managing your dynasty league, Scott, when you manage them like they're a keeper league rather than a dynasty league? In other words, you're thinking about these players from a 2 to 3 year window rather than a total career window.
Yeah, I think that's the way to. I manage my rosters deep. I like to have a lot of talent moving around, and that way, if somebody makes you the right offer, that player can go and you can replace that and move that up and down your roster, and you're moving lots of parts. So yeah, I really don't. If you look at any of your rosters year to year, I mean, I write them down and look at them and go, is that even the same team I had last year? Mostly, it doesn't even look the same. There might be 2 or 3 pieces, to your point, a keeper league, where you might keep 2 to 5 players. It looks like that, and then everything else is rearranged.
Bonus tight end question for you, Scott. I don't know if you can answer or not. Who's the tight end that the Saints took late? 6'8" guy out of UCLA.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Oh, I stumped him, Balky. I stumped him. That's a hard guy. Yeah.
Hey,
and
listen,
if you know it, you can't pronounce it. So don't worry.
Is it Gunther? Is it Gunther?
No. Ferrell, let me take a crack at this.
Yes, you go. Go, Balky.
Maliki Maratavao
Yeah, there you go. And
Is that it? I don't even know if that's it.
And he's 6'8". So this is how I think. I'm in the last round of the draft. I see a 6'8" tight end. You know, the hell with it. I want to draft him. You know, that's my.
I endorse that logic. Ferrell.
Endorse me this logic. Who's somebody you gotta have, and who's someone you're avoiding like the plague? And the more controversial that pick is, or that statement is, the better it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to swim against the current here.
My avoid is going to be probably more controversial.
Okay.
But my go get, you know, we've already kind of talked about him. I really, you know, Jordan James has been the guy for me. Like I said, he's a flag player. Trey was the other one. It's been a go get for me. And then Ferguson was a go get for me. Those were guys that just kept the value just kept falling, you know, and I'm a, you know, value-based drafter, you know, I'm not looking for position. I want the best player available all the time by my rankings, you know, not everybody else's rankings, although everybody else's information factors in. I listen to podcasts when I mountain bike, you know, get everybody's, you know, yours included to get different kind of perspective, of course. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the best value, but I do have some targets, and those were those. But my avoid, Travis Hunter. I don't see it. I don't understand it. I looked at the tape. I watched about 4 games. I don't see I see some rawness, but I look at the risk side of this. The risk side of this of, you know, he's going to play corner. Is he going to know the book? You know, he's going to know the playbook like he should. Is he going to get the reps in that he should? Is he going to learn the technique and tactic that he should? The NFL's tough, and you can have there's a lot of athletes that didn't pan out for us in fantasy. And to me, that's just ridiculous amount of risk. And I don't see the upside. I don't see the upside.
All right. So John Terry is obviously disagreeing with you. Corey Walters the same. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, Scott. But I will say there is a lot of, and listen, I'm not taking a stand here. So don't, fantasy receipts, if you're watching this, don't quote me on this, although I know you will. But here's the thing. When it comes to Travis Hunter, I can totally see the downside. I think a lot of people are so excited about, to quote Al Gore from Saturday Night Live, I'm so excited about Travis Hunter being the wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars and not the cornerback. There is still a downside. There is still something that we have to recognize as far as our dynasty rookie drafts go, as far as our dynasty, or as far as our best ball drafts go, be it in the KFFSC or FFPC. Like, you have to recognize there is some downside for Hunter. I was thrilled that I got Hunter in the double-digit rounds in the KFFSC Sweet 16, you know, back on Super Bowl Sunday or whatever it was. I was thrilled. However, I understand that while it's exciting to draft Travis Hunter now, there is still some downside there. He is on the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that features Brian Thomas Jr., a team that features Brenton Strange, a team that features, Travis Etienne, and listen, there's probably not a whole lot there anymore, but Bashal Tootin, LaQuint Allen, Tank Bigsby. There's all these pass catchers on Jacksonville this year, and it's fine if you still like Hunter, but I think you still have to recognize the downside.
And didn't they trade? Didn't they pick up Christian Kirk? You know,
no. They traded Kirk to the Texans. So he is not on the.
Oh, that's right. Kirk went to the Texans.
He went to the Texans.
Okay.
They cut Gabe Davis, which, I mean, that doesn't affect it at all. But the whole point I'm driving home here is you could be right about Hunter. I recognize that Hunter could be this boon for a lot of people in Dynasty and in redraft right now. But not a lot of people are talking about the underside of him maybe not achieving what they want him to achieve in year one with Brian Thomas, with him wanting to play corner as well. So, and I think that's the point I want to drive home here, and I think that's what you're trying to drive home here too, Scott. Is we recognize
exactly that it's
the fact that there are there's so many people raising hell about that answer. Makes me understand that whether you agree or disagree about it, and since we've been asking this question, Balky, that's the best answer we've ever had.
Yeah, and Corey
absolute
Walters,
best answer.
Yeah, Corey Walters is piping in too. There is also upside. I think Scott and Ferrell and myself, we're all representing there is upside. Nobody is denying that. However,
I don't think he's trash talent.
No, absolutely not. Especially, you consider, oh my God, the soliloquy we heard from James Gladstone talking about Travis Hunter at his introductory press conference. My God, it was a haiku on steroids. Like, this is a guy who loves Travis Hunter. This is a guy who comes from the F them picks philosophy out in Los Angeles with Les Snead, right? So the fact that they traded up for him, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say Travis Hunter is going to be one of the most followed players from now until the start of the NFL season, which is going to come up in September, as far as his ADP goes, because there's going to be a lot of people that are on him, and there's going to be a lot of people that won't touch him whatsoever. And Scott Brzycki definitely falling in on that. Scott, this was so much fun tonight. I apologize we kept you a little bit long. Yeah. I've been chatty all week on all my podcasts this week. This was so much fun. Congratulations on all your success in the FFPC Dynasty Leagues.
Thank you.
Keep it up with all your rookie drafts, and then obviously with everything coming up in drafting season, be it the main event, the big gorilla, everything that you may or may not be jumping in on. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, and we'll do this again, hopefully real soon, my friend. Have a great weekend.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Scott.
That is Scott Brzycki, ladies and gentlemen. You can.
Where's Scott from, Balky?
He is out in the desert in Arizona.
Yeah,
that is where he's located at, and you can follow him on Facebook. I don't believe he's on X. I could be wrong on that. Facebook.com/Brzycki. That is BRZYCKI. BRZYCKI. Excuse me. Okay.
He needs a vowel, but I'm going to invite him.
No, he does not need a vowel.
Yeah, he does.
Listen. When you live in Wisconsin like I do, and you see all your friends having all these last names without a vowel, he definitely.
Yeah, we're going to invite him to Kentucky, and we're going to give him a vowel.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll send a text message to Vanna White. And
there's several observations that I've had tonight. First of all, Scott just sent a thing. He is on the X, I think. I don't know.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Hold on, I didn't see that.
You go to your private chat and you'll get there. Well, I think that's what it said.
Okay, yeah.
That's something else. I don't know.
No, that's correct. That's correct.
I can't read the code sometimes.
No,
but there's. I like the way you talk about this private dynasty league that you're in. I love the way you. I think that you should go there with your new partner this year.
Who's my new partner?
Yeah, your spirit animal, Oinker. You should take Oinker into the private, and you should, they will think that you've lost your mind, but it's truly, it would be truly eclectic for you to go in. I think you could get in the heads of the other drafters. And then the most amazing thing, I would have lost this bet. We're talking about wide receivers that left Pittsburgh and did not do successful. Were not successful. And John Terry did not bring up Claypool. And that's one of the most amazing things that happened tonight. So either John's giving us a pass. In defense of Claypool, he went out one week and scored 45 points for me. So
He did. The guy I was referring to before, who joins me on my local radio show, who is out of central Pennsylvania, he owns a Ferrell, and you'll remember this guy, out of Texas. I think a 3rd-round pick. He wears it to all his Pittsburgh home games that he goes to. Limas Swede. Remember Limas Swede? Oh, he loved Limas Swede. I said, you are the only guy, including Limas Swede's mother and father, who own a Limas Swede jersey, and he wears it proudly to every Steelers game that he goes to. I always bring this up for all the people out there saying like, oh, the Steelers don't miss on day 1 or day 2 receivers. Yes, they do. There's plenty of them that they've missed on. Now, there's plenty of them that they've hit on, but there's plenty of them that they've missed on as well. We didn't get a chance to talk about this tonight, but I'll end it with a Steelers question. I apologize for not bringing this up earlier, but this was an email that we got in, about 4 hours ago, I want to say, roughly. Randy in Vesper, Wisconsin, wants to know, where do you stand on Roman Wilson versus Calvin Austin? I made my thoughts clear earlier on this. I said Calvin Austin. Ferrell, how do you feel about it?
I'm a Roman Wilson guy. I'm still a Roman Wilson.
You're a Roman Wilson guy. Okay.
I think we can find Calvin Austin talent sets with other teams where that skill set will do better, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. And there's definitely a school of thought for both of those. Let's talk about the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship.
Why not?
I just made my pick in what league was this? That I think it was a main event that I made.
Main event.
It was main event, and I just took at the 7-10 TJ Hawkinson as my first tight end off the board. Beg your pardon. It's
not the main event.
It was a draft master that I took TJ Hawkinson in. I like the way my team is shaping up, not only in that, but in the KFFSC main event, the training camp edition, which is off and running. You too can join the KFFSC main event by signing up for, let me think about this here for a second. It is the preseason division in a 4-hour format, or the mini camp division in a 6-hour format. Draft will start as soon as it's filled. That's just the training camp, or excuse me, that's just the main event for KFFSC. You have the draft master. You have so much more going on.
We got a best ball championship, Bucky, waiting for 96 teams. The first 20 of them are already spoken for. $300 entry pays a grand prize of $10.
Including me, right?
Yeah.
I'm in that twice.
You're in there, and you can do more anytime, Bucky. Yep. You will get a sketch, but
I will.
And I think that's going to be an exciting league and a good way for people to win a nice payday. It pays well in the divisions too. And the Sweet 16's got a unique format to play, so it's enjoyable and a lot of fun. It's what we do on Super Sunday. Balky, I just cannot wait to get to football. We got a lot of fantasy drafting to do, which makes it tolerable, but we've got to get to the NFL.
I keep saying this, and like nobody wants to hear it from me because they're hearing it from the FFPC. If you get in a draft right now in the KFFSC or the FFPC, be it the main event, the Big Gorilla, the best ball tournaments, the KFFSC Sweet 16, the KFFSC main event, you are getting great value on a lot of ADP in those events. Players, let's flash back to when I was drafting in the KFFSC on Super Sunday. Ashton Genty in the late 3rd round, Travis Hunter in a double-digit round, Ferrell. You can still get certain value. I'm not saying you can get values on those specific players, but you can still get great values on players if you're drafting here on May 9th, when a lot of people haven't woken up yet. And if you're trying to win a main event grand prize in the KFFSC, if you're trying to win a 7-figure grand prize in the FFPC, now is the time to draft. I know you've been drafting. I know this is a lot of fun, and things will change very, very quickly as we move on throughout the summer. But man, if you haven't drafted yet, now is the time to draft.
Exactly, Balky. And the culmination of the drafting year is in Las Vegas, the FFPC, and I look forward to seeing everyone out there, and it will be a blast to see. It'll be a blast to see everyone in Kentucky. We're waiting.
Sorry about that. I just want to make sure I got
that.
Well,
it's going to work.
Yeah, so KFFSC.com is where to go. KFFSC.com. Ferrell, thank you so much. I am springing this upon you right now. Are you, and I think we talked about this earlier tonight, you are able to do a show not next Friday, but this coming Wednesday.
I'm going to be with you Wednesday. I wouldn't miss it, Balky, for the world.
That's what I thought. So Ferrell and I will be on the air next Wednesday at 10 p.m., not Friday. Ferrell, thank you so much. KFFSC.com is where to go. Be good, my friend. We'll talk with you next week.
Thank you, brother.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. KFFSC.com is where to go to register for all of his tournaments, leagues, which I have signed up for en masse, and I'll be doing much more. So going forward there at KFFSC.com. I want to thank Scott Brzycki, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for streaming, watching, listening, downloading. We appreciate you. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, as I just mentioned to Ferrell, will be back. We will not have a show next Friday night. We will have a show next Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time, with five-time FFPC champ Adam Tauntis. And what's interesting about this show, the NFL schedule comes out, I believe, at 8 p.m. Eastern time that night. So we'll be able to tackle all the ins and outs of the NFL schedule as you are drafting your best ball teams, your big gorilla teams, and your FFPC main event teams. In case you missed it, we did not have an insider access show this past Thursday on the Better Sports Network. We did a special show on Wednesday when we covered the hard way big gorilla draft, myffpc.com, all the FFPC socials, and of course the Better Sports Network. This was a collection of super talented FFPC players, including but not limited to the Go Bills franchise, who won back-to-back FFPC main event championships. You think about Dan Williamson, the overhyped sleeper, who co-hosts the Stack Hunters podcast over on the Player Profiler podcast network. There is a ton of players. Mike Shope from WGR 550 in Buffalo. He had the number one pick last night. So we had a ton of great drafters. And in case you missed it, you want to watch it. They call it the hard way for a reason. These 12 players are signing up for the hard way on winning $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Big Gorilla this year. Dave Terpoli, the 14-time FFPC League champion, co-hosted with me. We had great interviews from Abibag Bitova, who is the back-to-back Football Guys Players Championship champion. We had Darren Armani, FantasyMojo.com. We had Theo Greminger, FantasyPoints.com. And, of course, Bradley Stalder from the Stack Hunters podcast on the Player Profiler Network. It was a great show. And in case you missed it, go to the Better Sports Network socials as well as the FFPC socials. We will be going live this coming Thursday, with one of my favorite guests of all time from RotoWire.com, Alan Seslowski. If we were going on the air, literally on the air with the FCC, we would have to have the mute button at a fingertip away, because you never know what Alan Seslowski is going to say. Again, one of my favorite guests, Thursday on the BSN socials and the FFPC socials, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The RotoViz High Stakes Slowdown returned for the May edition with Josh Siegel, a 12-time FFPC Dynasty champion. Similar to what we heard from Scott Brzycki tonight, he told us how his Dynasty rookie drafts are going in the FFPC and how he's handling his redraft leagues, not only in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, but the FFPC Big Gorilla and the FFPC main event as well. You can listen to that on the RotoViz podcast channel as well as the FFPC socials as well. Play the FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball Tournament. $125, $35 respectively. $300,000 grand prize, $100,000 grand prize. And don't forget, the runner-up of the FFPC Best Ball Tournament will receive, for the first time ever, a $100,000 grand prize. Drafts are available with the 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clock. Same thing with the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. You can play that right now for $1 million grand prize. You're going to get a $50 discount on every third team you register for. The early Rampage tournament is live, so if you sign up for the Big Gorilla, you're automatically entered into the Big Gorilla tournament. 2 tournaments for the price of 1, and you're still eligible for the 7 Bananas promotion. You just got to keep getting that 7 pick multiple times in a row, and you can parlay that into a 4-person jungle safari, courtesy of the FFPC, or a $50,000 grand prize. And speaking of grand prizes, the FFPC main event, once again, focusing in on a $1 million grand prize. Slow drafts off and running right now at myffpc.com. Features a $6 million prize pool. Early bird deadline is May 31st. So you have roughly 3 weeks, a little bit less than 3 weeks right now. Yeah, a little bit more than 3 weeks right now. If you register by then, you're going to get $200 off your first team, and you'll automatically be entered into the drawing for the FFPC Pros vs. Joes tournament, where you will have the opportunity to go up against 5 fellow FFPC Joes and 6 FFPC industry pros for a free FFPC main event entry for 2026, a $2,000 plus value. Check that out at myffpc.com. Drafts off and running. Make sure you're getting in on that. Dynasty Startups available from $100 to $5,000 over at myffpc.com. If you want to play fantasy football 365 days a year, check out myffpc.com. 1,800 plus leagues. Over the last 15 years, none have ever folded. That's at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday with Alan Soslowski from rotowire.com on Insider Access for the FFPC. For Ferrell Elliott, I've been Eric Balkman. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Football Players Championship YouTube channel.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I know this is going to sound salesy, but I will say, more so than any other year, this year, I am seeing a huge spike in drafting early. And yes, maybe you've missed out on certain things drafting early. But I know from drafting now, which is still early, I'm still seeing huge dividends in the KFFSC. If you want to set yourself up for success, Mother of God draft before June, draft before Mother's Day. This is when you win 6-figure and 7-figure grand prizes over at myffpc.com or kffsc.com. Last sales pitch I'm going to give you on that. I'm just telling you from personal experience, I feel really good about this year. You should too. Happy Mother's Day to my mother and happy Mother's Day to my wife. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Chances are anybody who's watching this could not be in the place they're at without their mothers. So happy Mom's Day for everybody out there. And we will talk with you again next week. Thank you so much. Love you, Mom.